processing of licenses. When we came here last year, we were sitting with 1,700 license applications that were not processed. And I made the team to stand because they were able to push. There were no additional resources, human resources. There was no additional budget. Using the same budget, they knuckled down and they were able to produce the results that were giving to the leadership and the conference this morning. So of those, we made decisions on 969 applications. The question would be, what is left? And so maybe if I start with a breakdown, those are the licenses that were finalized. Some, of course, were rejected for valid reasons. Others were then, finalized, as in refused or, issued. Now, what is left? We are sitting as of 15th of March with 670 applications. So we've passed the 50%, we've passed the 60% mark in terms of eradicating backlog in the Northwest. And that's because of the team that you saw, the leadership that was standing here. And I made them stand consciously because it is not just ourselves as the executive leadership. It's the team that you see. They knuckled down, they realized what was required for this province to deal with the challenges of unemployment and economic growth. So if we move on, maybe let me just conclude this and say, what disappoints me in the number is that of that number, those ones that were finalized, only 2 mining rights were issued. Only 98 mining permits were issued. Only 47 prospecting rights were issued. So clearly, we finalize applications and people don't come and execute for one reason or another. Now, if you don't come and execute, you are delaying economic growth. So you just applied, you were granted, and then you are now sitting on that looking for an investor. It doesn't work like that. So we will go back and say, but what has happened to those who were granted? What have they done? Because by not using those licenses, basically you are retarding economic growth. So we need to send out a message quite clearly that we'll now look at the use it or lose it rule very seriously. So we will be coming to you. We have a new compliance unit that is going to come back and say, but you promised that by this time you will have done this, and we're not seeing it. So under care and maintenance, we did engage with the companies because, again, if you keep some of these on under care and maintenance, there's jobs that are lost. There is economic activity that doesn't take place. We then engage with the companies. We've been successful in 6 of those companies. 6 operations have come back into operation. Of course, that's a small number for us. We would have wanted more. But as I indicated earlier, the economic environment is such that the cost of capital is becoming very prohibitive. On illegal mining, we were asked to work with the police to ensure that there's a special unit that is established. I'm pleased to report that that unit is in place. In fact, it also has got an organized crime element to it. Just looking at organized crime in the illegal mining space, and a number of arrests and convictions have taken place in this province in the last 14 months. And we are serious about this to such an extent that the department now has established a separate compliance and enforcement branch headed by a DDG that is going to see this through. Because one, illegal mining is disrupting operations that are employing people, that are creating, economic opportunities. The theft, one of the issues is, apart from illegal mining, is the theft of cable that is becoming an impediment to mining in this province. However, what we can say is that we are coming for you. We promise that the unit will be formed. It is formed. Trust me, if you got away with it, we will get to you. That's a promise. In terms of mineral exploration strategy, I think the geoscience colleagues, they're presenting, I think after the tea break, they'll talk more to that. But as Minister has indicated, there is funding that has been obtained, and I think we now need to approach the department on how to access that funding. Energy shortage, I'm not going to spend much. A lot has been done there. As Minister has indicated, the changes to Schedule 2 of the Electricity Regulation Act were effected as directed, and as Minister indicated, licensing requirements removed, and bid window 5 and 6, 2,800 megawatts, of projects have reached financial close, and construction should be starting. And there was a determination that was issued by the Minister, as alluded to earlier. The issue of revival smelters, no significant progress. Why is that? Power. The cost of power, but also then the availability of power. And I think we know what is happening with availability of power. So those issues that were within our control, we believe that we were able to make some progress. And I can indicate here that the Northwest, this team that was standing, has assured me that the Northwest will be the first province where the backlog will be eliminated, and that will be before the end of this calendar year. On small-scale mining, the policy was finalized last year, and also what we need to do now is to incorporate some of the aspects into the MPRDA, whose amendment will also be starting. The funding for small scale has been secured, as I indicated earlier. Lastly, what are the challenges that we still are grappling with? Energy supply, of course, still remains. The issue of objections and appeals. I think what we're noticing on appeals and objections, some of them are frivolous. Please, no frivolous appeal, because you are delaying economic growth. Protests still remain a challenge. Illegal mining, inadequate infrastructure, particularly in the province, the social license to operate. There's a need for whole of government to work together to achieve our objective. So we think that we will be able to report more progress in the next coming, conferences. However, what we can promise is that no backlog here come end of this financial year. New system will be in place before the end of this calendar year as well. This is the mining licensing system. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. There is a serious protest from politicians. They are saying, I've acknowledged everybody except them. So let's acknowledge them. In our midst, we have the executive mayor of Rustenburg, Meshila Mabale Huma. We have the MEC for Public Works and Roads, Resalaiva Molapisi. We have the MEC of Agriculture and Rural Development, Redes Bomohono, Medes Bomohono. She's from Phokeng. Because it's Channing, Marikemo Phokeng, Tlogelang Phokeng. Kemo Phokeng, Bamisa Sebonda Sammasona. And then we have MEC Matota Sambata, MEC for Health. We have MEC Motlalepule Hosho, MEC Finance. We have MEC Tsotso Tlapi, MEC for Economic Development. That department, the name is very long. Now, this was an important report. And this is progress report since the last conference, which I suppose everybody must have a copy of that report, particularly the provincial government, Comrade Samson Gwedemandash, because this provincial government must be an active role player in this area. In this area. I understand that there's a national competency, but this is happening in this province. So we are getting in full force, Samson. Now I'm going to call Siareng Botlhale. Is he closer? Siareng Botlhale, over to you.
Thank you, Program Director. Honorable Minister, Mr. Mantashe, Honorable Deputy Minister, Dr. Nobuhle Ngavani, Premier of the Northwest, Mr. Mape, MECs, traditional leaders, delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I think firstly, Program Director, I think it was important that I corrected that order. I was told it's career limiting to speak before your boss. So I had to let Mr. Makwebela go first, but I was ready. I'll be very brief, delegates. I believe we are pressed for time. I'll be presenting on investments in the province, as well as giving a bit of a background around my unit. So I think first it's important to indicate where we are located as a unit, investment promotion. We do sit within the Mining, Minerals and Energy Policy Development branch, and our function specifically speaks to promoting economic growth and attracting investments. We are a fairly young unit. We are 2 years into existence. But we do have very big aspirations in terms of how do we attract investments into the mining and energy sector. So just to again highlight the new mining belt being Limpopo, Northwest and Northern Cape. We view these three provinces as key to growth in the country. And really for us is to have these conferences be at the scale of Mining Indaba, which is held in Cape Town. And I think key to that, for us to achieve that, is to ensure that there are investable opportunities for investors to come and view and assess and make investment decisions. Now, investors are all over the globe. We're in Canada recently, in Toronto for PDC. So I think, again, importantly for us, if we want to bring those people here to Northwest, we need to provide them with actual projects. Otherwise, we're then viewed as a talk show. So that isn't our intention. So this is our second edition of the Northwest Mining Investment Conference. In comparison, Mining Indaba is turning 30 this year. We assure you it's not going to take us 30 years to reach a Mining Indaba scale in terms of our conferences. So I think just to highlight this slide, and I think if you take nothing else away from my presentation, I think it's these three sort of pillars. This is our value chain as a unit. Our primary function as investment promotion is to promote and attract investments, is to identify and facilitate investments, and lastly is for us to retain and grow these investments. So these three functions or pillars sort of anchor the work that we do as a unit. It being our second year in existence, our primary focus has been on promotion and attraction, and hence why these events provide us a platform for us to promote investments in the country. We do so in these three provinces, but as well as globally at events such as PDAC, China Mine. Of investable opportunities for investors. Until we get that second thing right, I think we won't be able to attract our key audience, which is investors, communities, and also other enabling partners. So I think as a key takeaway for us as a collective here is to really think about how do we sort of unearth these projects that are here in the province. Secondly, it's to identify and facilitate investments. So in our missions, when you go abroad to these various countries, we engage with a number of investors, some with a genuine interest in investing in the country, but their key challenge is, well, where are the investments? Where do we go to? And we see ourselves as the bridge between that foreign investor sitting in Vancouver and a junior miner company sitting here in the Northwest. So again, I think our appeal to you guys is sort of, leverage us as that bridge between an investor in Beijing, China, Vancouver, Canada, and yourself here in the Northwest. But key to that is assisting these emerging companies, these junior miners, with being investment ready. So having a mining right or a mining permit isn't enough. There's certain requirements that you need to have, certain things in place that you need to have before you're able to then have a conversation with an investor. Otherwise, it doesn't benefit both parties. So through our unit, through our facilitation unit, we help assist these companies to then be what we call investor ready. And then I think lastly, our third pillar, which is retain and grow. So this is, I would say, our relationship-based function. One thing we've sort of realized is that it's easier to get an existing company to grow their investment as opposed to have a new mining company or investor enter the country. An existing company knows the landscape, they know the dynamics, they have the scars, and they're more amenable to investing. So I think key for us here is to understand our existing investors, understanding their challenges, and sort of seeing how do we then sort of assist them with increasing their investments, opening new mines, etc. So I think it's important then we sort of, give an overview, sort of a background as to where we are as a country. I won't dive too deep into these slides, but I think important for us to understand, collectively here is that we are in a competition for investments, not only between provinces, but also with other mining jurisdictions here in Africa as well as in Canada. So in our thinking here as a collective, we need to ask ourselves, why should an investor choose us as the Northwest, as South Africa? So in terms of investments, there are a number of global tailwinds and global headwinds. So we do see infrastructure stimulus boosting demand for commodities. We're seeing that there is a commodity cycle and a search for green metals, to which South Africa has an abundance of. The energy transition as well provides opportunities for critical mineral investments, as well as what we're seeing is a revival in M&A markets and in international project finance. So those are some of the supportive factors that are supporting investments. In terms of headwinds, colleagues, we do know that the global economy is in a bit of a downturn. Before, we used to say that when America sneezes, the world catches a flu. But now, I think when China sneezes, I think we're seeing that, the world catches a flu. So a lockdown in Beijing, China has implications for us here in South Africa. It affects supply chains, it affects sort of our production, and also has impacts on our investments. So those are some of the things that are sort of prohibiting investments. COVID, which impacted us quite badly, but we saw sort of a resurgence following the lockdowns. And I think as well, in tough times, investors tend to seek safer havens. They then consider our country as a bit more risky and find sort of your more safer investments, and they retreat to commodities such as gold. So just to then give you a background in terms of contribution of the mining industry, in 2022, the mining industry contributed close to 500 billion. This was up from 2021. Employment went up in 2022, with GDP going slightly down. But again, positively, I think value of production boosted by higher prices, as well as mineral exports, also went down. Now, this all happened, colleagues, in a context of a very tough sort of local and international environment. I think despite these headwinds, I think the key takeaway is that our mining sector performed quite well. So, just to bring it back home once again, South Africa is actually a very attractive destination for investments. I think we tend to be very negative as a country. We tend to sort of score a lot of own goals in terms of how we perceive our attractiveness. And we sort of, when you engage with investors abroad, there's a bit of uncertainty as to sort of, what's happening. And I think it's important that we sort of share the good story of South Africa. One thing that I don't think is echoed enough is the fact that, South Africa has approximately 90% of the world's PGMs. So right now, as we said here, colleagues, we are in the capital of PGMs globally. There's no other country that can sort of come close to what we have right here. And I think that's sort of the message we need to sort of echo as we engage with international investors. So I think I can't miss this opportunity for my sales pitch, for my South Africa's Open for Business talk. So why should you invest in South Africa? I think we have a very sophisticated financial market. We're seeing right now how the global financial sector is suffering, whereas we've sort of remained sort of relatively stable. I think that's a very important thing to consider. And for investors as well, I think it provides some confidence that should they invest in South Africa, from a financial markets perspective, the investments are safe. I think our government has had significant success in ensuring macroeconomic stability. I think we remain an investment destination of choice in Africa and globally. But again, we are competing for investments, so we should never rest on our laurels as a country, but always seek new ways for us to better ourselves. We do see potential from the Africa Free Trade Agreement, and I think as well we do have a competitive advantage in solar, wind, and hydrogen. So I could have written much more than this, but I sort of just picked a few highlights as to why invest in South Africa. So this is a map of critical minerals in South Africa, and it's quite clear to see the rich potential of critical minerals discovery in the Northwest. I won't delve too much into this. I know CGS is here as well, and they'll provide a more detailed view, but I thought it important for us to highlight that whereas the world is scrambling for critical minerals, we have them in abundance right here in South Africa. And that's an important story for us to tell. And ours is to create the enabling environment for investments to then come. So some of the work that we're doing as investment promotion is investment tracking. There's a myth or a misconception that there are no investments in the country. And I don't think that's accurate. I don't think we have done enough in terms of capturing investments, in terms of reporting on investments that are taking place. So one of the work that we've tasked ourselves as investment promotion is to actively track investments across the country, but with a focus in these 3 provinces. So I'm just going to highlight a few companies. They're much more than this, and I think as we sort of, dig deeper, engage various partners, we will then, have a baseline as to what is the level of investments in Northwest. So over here we have Bushveld Minerals. They're investing 1 billion in expansion of their Vametco mine, and this will create an additional 70 jobs. This is a brownfield investment, and some of the work we're doing as well is to understand the challenges that are faced by investors. Because we'd like to know sort of how can we then come in and intervene to unlock that blockage and allow them to proceed with their investment plans. I'm not a fan of the term investment pledge. It gives the idea that someone woke up one morning, had breakfast, then decided that they're going to invest 1 billion. That isn't the case. We know that a lot of thinking goes into investments, a lot of studies, a lot of plans. So I think I prefer the term investment plans and not non-investment pledges. So over here we have Bushveld Energy. This is their IPP project to support operations at their Vametco mine. And again, there another 40 million has been committed. We are actively tracking that investment. It's a greenfield investment, and we are trying to see sort of how far they are with regards to that. We spoke about smelting capacity earlier on. I think another sort of positive story was one by Ironveld. Ironveld acquired the ferrochrome furnace, and they are sort of in phases revitalizing that facility. Again, another positive story, and 140 new jobs to be created in the first 12 months. Then another IPP project was Tronox. Tronox is building 200 megawatt solar plants to support their operations here in Northwest. These 2 projects were the first which were announced following the relaxing of the 10 megawatt cap. So, sort of, another indication of how investments have followed policy changes. And then I think lastly we have East Plats. They're listed on Toronto and the JSE, and they're also in a process of increasing expansion at one of the mines here in Northwest. So I think what we're trying to say really, colleagues, is that we do take investment seriously. We do believe that for us to measure our impact, for us to sort of give credence to these conferences, is for us to be able to actively track investments and report on them. So I think to investors who are here, we do invite you to engage us as a unit, find out what prospects there are, and we're then able to assist. Thank you very much, Program Director.
No, thank you very much, Siageng. Now the Premier and the MEC and the Minister had a call from the chairperson of the African National Congress in the province, and they are saying the chairperson was saying Siageng must sit with the MEC for economic development from now and at lunchtime, and that he must talk about these investment opportunities. Because they were also saying to the chairperson that when Siageng was talking about, when he was supposed to talk about the Northwest, he moved out of the Northwest quickly and spoke about South Africa and so on. He did not get into details about the Northwest. And they said critical minerals are in abundance, particularly here in the Northwest. So meet with the MEC, let's talk about those investment opportunities, and we are getting into that space. I repeat it, we are going to play an active role as a province. We will never be spectators. The next person is Refilwe Monoko. As you are sent to the stage, Jomo, come closer. I have an extra chair here, Jomo. Immediately when Refilwe is done, you must just come to the stage quickly, because we are seriously behind schedule. Where's Refilwe? Yeah, she must come. Come, Refilwe. And Jomo, when I use that other route, turn left and then right, and then you'll see a chair. Thank you very much.
Dumelang Kalapeng. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Minister, and all the dignitaries that are here. I thought they would play Vulindlela with Mam Kopos as I was coming up the stage. My presentation, please. In the meantime, while they get the presentation up, I come from the Council for Geoscience. I'm representing Mr. Mabuza, who apologizes for not being here. Okay, maybe whilst they're figuring out how to put it up, I want to make a few remarks from the comments or points that were made earlier. That if we really serious about mining, and I know that South Africa has relied on mining as a key pillar that contributes into the economy, what will work for us is collaboration. And I think we have missed a lot of opportunities because we haven't mastered the art of working together at various levels. Somewhere we work in silos, somewhere we get it right, but somewhere we miss it. There's a reason why we have a term called the mining value chain. That means in order for the chain to be intact, the links have to be together. This simply means that each and every champion of a sector or a part of the value chain must do their part. If there is a D-link somewhere, then we are going to take a long time before we reach the areas that we want to reach. Okay, they're still putting up my presentation. The other point that I want to make is that whilst we are talking about investment in mining, finding projects that we are going to implement in terms of mining, we also need to think about, or rather have the end in mind. We talk a lot about mining investment, yes, that's good, but we talk less about what's going to happen at the end of a mining project, at the end of an exploration project. So those are conversations that we need to start having now, so that when that time comes, we are not surprised, or we don't experience challenges of ghost towns. We need to be planning now that if we find a project, we sponsor a project, we understand what resources are needed in that project, we know how long it's going to take. By that time, we are ready. There's a concept that we spoke about a few years ago called the post-economic mine planning, that this is the time to plan those things now. As we talk about investment, finding those projects, we need to know in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years' time, what is it that we're going to do with that land? After mining, after we have rehabilitated the mine properly, are we going to have agricultural projects there? What is it that we're going to do so that we arrest the problem of ghost towns? My presentation. Okay, my last point. We need to also master the art of telling our own story. And I find that, and I know there are other people in the audience who think the same, that we allow other people to tell our story. We allow, and this is the time for us to step forward. We've allowed S&P Global to say to the world, these are the resources that South Africa has. We allow Citibank to tell everyone that this is what South Africa has. This is the time for us to say, us with our own voices collectively, this is in fact what South Africa has. Because more often than not, the story is always skewed. Okay, I'll try to improvise in the absence of my presentation. I'm not sure what the challenge is. So I come from the Council for Geoscience. I have indicated that the Council for Geoscience is one of the science councils in South Africa. We report to the DMRE. We are okay, there you go. I'm seeing it here, but the audience is not seeing it. All right, I don't want to waste. Thank you. So we are a legislated entity. We look after geoscience, data and information in South Africa, both onshore and offshore. We are a public company. Last year we celebrated 110 years of existence. If you go to the Geoscience Act, you'll see that our mandate is merely to South Africa, both onshore and offshore, gather the information and curate the information. We also are there to advise the state. We run a few facilities. We have a laboratory and an analytical facility that is open to the public, although we use it mostly for our own projects. We have a core library. For those who don't know, we have a lot of core in Pretoria. Core that is donated from different companies and core that we ourselves have drilled. So you're welcome to come by once you come to Pretoria. We also have a museum in Pretoria, and all of these are legislated facilities that we run. We have a vision. I'm not going to go through the mission and the values, but the takeaway for this slide is that in everything that we do, we want to contribute to a prosperous and transformed society through the work that we do. I know you have seen this somewhere, an exploration triangle. The takeaway on this slide is to show you where we are. The bottom of the triangle is where most geoscientific or most geological surveys sit. We don't do exploration per se, but we make a lot of geoscience information and data available to those who are going to implement exploration project. So whereas we are not really an exploration company, we make that information available for those who want to continue to make proper decisions on how they're going to continue. And if you like, we sort of de-risk the projects to some extent. The information that we generate is used in various sectors, including the mineral and mining sector. The information is used for hydrogeology, infrastructure development. You want to make sure that when you erect a building or you build your own house, you do that on solid ground. And you need geoscientific information to make sure that you are building on solid ground. Looking just on surface may not really help. Maybe before I go into this slide, I should say this, that a lot of countries who have very strong mineral and mining sectors have invested a lot in their geological surveys. And we are fortunate that the South African government has done that. They've given us a promise of 20 billion rands to implement what we call an integrated multidisciplinary geoscience mapping project. So if you look at countries like Canada, America, they've invested a lot in detailed geological mapping. They have proven that if the state spends, say, $5, the multiplier effect will bring the investment at the end to $125 that can be invested back into the economy. So there was no need to reinvent the wheel. What we needed to do was to encourage the government in investing in such a program that is championed by the CGS. If you look at the bottom of the slide, you will see the various scales that maps are produced or geoscientific information is made available. Far left, if you are sitting looking at me, information is presented there at a scale of 1 in a million. It's really crude. It's difficult to make decisions in terms of exploration or mining on such crude information. But if you move towards the right of the slide, you'll see that the more detailed information is presented, the better decisions get to be. I've already indicated here that geoscience information is plowed back into programs of infrastructure development, food security, geohazards, energy security, mining, and so forth. So why are we doing this program? And I will soon zoom into the Northwest province, because we believe that without geoscientific information, without geoscientific data, we are not going to make the right decisions. So we have a saying at home, at the Council for Geoscience, that says that geoscience is the fulcrum of human development. So we work both onshore and offshore. This national mapping program started on land. In the red boxes, I'm showing you the focus areas that we started with, and you'll see that we have covered parts of the Northwest Province. So since we started this mapping program, we map at a scale of 1 in 50,000. That's as detailed as you can get. That's an acceptable standard for anyone to make a decision on how they want to proceed in terms of exploration. From just over 4 years ago, or 4.5 years ago, we were under 5% in terms of coverage of detailed mapping. South Africa is fortunate because we have covered the whole country in terms of 1 in a million scale. We have covered the whole country in terms of 1 in 250, but we haven't done so great in terms of availing detailed information, and hence we have this national mapping program. So as of today, as of the end of March, we have improved the coverage to 12%, and this information is generated so that it can be availed to those who want to invest. And this is where we start. When we talk about boosting investor confidence, this is where we start.